G'day guys, Clint here, recording episode number 65 of The Full Landscape with James Riddell from Wildeye. Wildeye is a New Zealand-based company that is in the irrigation space. They are taking care of the telemetry side of water meter and moisture sensor management. James is here at the moment seeing some customers, or hopefully some potential customers with us. And so I thought it would be a good opportunity to do a podcast. This is not a traditional full landscape podcast. It's probably a little bit more technical and a little bit business, but I still think you'll get some value from it. If you've got any questions about what James does or anything to do with irrigation, please don't hesitate to get in touch. But I'll leave it with you. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right. Well, thank you for joining me, James, for what is your first ever podcast. If you can give us a bit of an introduction, I guess your 2 or 3 minute elevator pitch around, your background, where you're based, and how you got into what you're doing, just so our audience can get some context around why we're sitting down and talking today.
Yeah, sure. Well, firstly, just who we are, Wildeye. So we focus on making it really easy to do remote monitoring. So, and that's largely monitoring of water. So we monitor flow meters, we monitor soil moisture, weather stations, just anything to do with water. We make it, if you want to get information on how much water you're using, we make it really easy to do that. And in terms of where we started out, that was 21 years ago. I started the company with a friend. We were pretty young when we started it. Yeah, I was 23. I think.
Wow.
Yeah, so we didn't really know what we were doing when we started, but we sort of learnt.
You and a mate?
Learnt the hard way, yeah.
Yep.
So he was electrical engineer, Jed Forbes.
Yep.
I was a computer scientist, and so we just wanted to sort of make products, and we really got onto water because my brother's company, they're water engineers, and so they're designing wastewater treatment systems.
Older brother.
Yep. Yeah. So they were our first customers, and their customers were our first customers, and we sort of built products for them, and we really saw, the way that things were being done back then. There was a lot of scope for improving it, and we didn't have any experience. We didn't really know how the competitors did it at that time. We didn't even know who they were,
or if you even had competitors.
Yeah. But we just saw the problems that they faced as a business, and that included getting access to how their systems were working, so they could get that fast feedback. We just sort of built it from there, and just been growing organically since then.
So was that quite customized solutions back then? Like you kind of had a problem and then you'd build a solution specifically for that business? Or what you did for that one business you could have then kind of resold onto like similar avatars kind of thing? Yeah,
we very intentionally built it as a product to start with. So we didn't want to do it just for...
So it wasn't going to become a service as like an hourly rate business. You wanted to be able to...
No, absolutely. We wanted to build a product company, so that was our focus right from the start.
Do you think you knew the importance of products then, or that's just what you felt? Because for me, I find that products are a better way to have a large business than service, because you almost like package and distribute really easily. Whereas if you're a lawyer, you're only selling by the hour. You can only obviously you can have lots of lawyers, but did you know about product versus service then, or it just happened to be what you felt was right?
Well, no, because although I was young, I'd done a few years already doing in software, building customized systems for other people, and I sort of knew that that's not where I wanted to head. It's pretty technical and complicated, and I really wanted to be able to replicate that across different customers.
Yeah, that makes sense. So rather than you being a IT support business, you've become the software manufacturer, kind of thing. So you can, here's another CD, which would have been back then. Here's another, well, maybe not 20 years, I'm thinking 30 years ago.
I think we had what was that one between?
Like when you used to be able
tapes and CDs, you had those
floppy disks,
cartridges.
Yeah, the little floppies.
Yeah.
So did you go to university to do computer science, or were you kind of more self-taught and just got good, or?
I was self-taught before uni, but
Yep.
then went to uni.
Yep.
And did software engineering.
So what year would you have finished high school? Like 2000-ish or no, 2000 and, sorry,
No,
97,
90
96?
I think 94 was my last year at
Okay.
high school, yeah.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, computers weren't super advanced in 94. Like you were, what was that? When was the early days of Mac? That was kind of like when we started seeing the big Apple Macintoshes
Yeah,
around
yeah.
that period.
I mean, I
the
sort of,
television screen looking ones.
Yeah, what was the one I had when I was a kid? I was probably...
Commodore 64, you're a bit...
No, ZX Spectrum.
Yep.
Yeah, so I was 7 or 8. Dad bought a ZX Spectrum. We as a family, because he's an engineer, so we used to travel a lot. So I remember going to Malaysia and not having much to do other than program this ZX Spectrum. So
As in you were there for holidays, or he was working and you were there?
He was working there. Yeah, we went to school there.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So we jumped a long way ahead, and obviously we went straight to your business. I'm a bit more. I guess I have curiosity around how you got to the point that you're using computers that aggressively at a young age. So, born in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And grew up there until travelled a bit with dad, or with dad's work through the.
Yeah, we went a few times for a year at a time, that sort of thing.
Still pretty solid period of time outside of your schooling, like to go away from your friends and have to go meet new friends and like. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
you don't even register it. You're just like, well, that's just what we do.
No, exactly. I had 2 brothers. We all went, and
Yep.
it didn't seem like a big deal at the time.
No, and I lived in Japan for a year when I was 17, so obviously a lot older than probably you were. But
Yeah.
I found that the people that I know that had done an exchange, and you'd kind of done an exchange, like you've taken your whole life and they mature quicker because you have to, because you're starting to assimilate with other nationalities and languages, and so I find that in hearing that you've done that, the fact that you started a business at 23 doesn't surprise me, because you've kind of you don't even know it, you're not even feeling it, but you kind of like you've been thrown into situations that are challenging throughout your childhood, and so starting a business is like, okay, well, starting a business.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I remember wanting to do it for when I was young. I wanted to start a business.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just Dad started his own business.
So you grew up with it, you were around it, you understood it.
Yeah, both of my brothers have their own businesses.
Yeah.
Grandfathers had their own business, so I guess
that's the kind of like the line of conversation around the dinner table is not about like what kind of a job are you going to have when you're older. It's almost like what business are you going to run when you're older, without it being that direct. I mean, that's how we talk with my kids. Like, it's funny, they'll talk about like, what are they going to do when they grow up? And I'm like, are you going to own a business or have a job? That's the kind of questions I'm asking, rather than what are you going to do when you grow up? Because that's how I kind of, see it, which I don't think is a standard conversation. So started early days, just the two of you?
Yeah, just the two of us. Yep.
And then working out of the shed or the house, or you kind of had a location, or
working out of my brother's office.
Oh, because he had his business already.
Yeah, yeah.
So go there, it's a bit of free rent hopefully at the start, and then
just really late nights doing building the product.
Yep.
We were young, so you could no family at that time, so you can sort of do
ramen noodles and 4 hours sleep, and you're fine.
Exactly.
Kind of.
Yeah.
And so, what was the first product? It was like obviously some kind of it was telemetry based, or
it was telemetry, and we were connecting to programmable logic controllers, PLCs, and sucking the data out of them and transmitting it to a cloud-based system, which is it was pretty unique at that time. I mean, it's not unique now. It's,
well, when you say cloud-based, I imagine that term is 10 years old, maybe 15 years old, but you're saying it's 20,
there's a computer running in the corner of our office with
that's the cloud.
That was the cloud,
and the communication is a cable rather than 4G and 3G.
Oh, it was all right from the start. It was all cellular, so that was 2G.
Far out. I imagine the cost of that would have been a lot higher than it is today per message or per call.
The SIM card costs were.
Or you just do a lot less.
High.
You do a lot less regularity, or you're paying per message rather than per month, kind of thing.
Yeah, you were just paying a monthly fee. It was sort of the same as a mobile phone cost, sort of thing. Yeah.
And so, what kind of customers were looking for that? Because obviously now it feels like it's becoming more mainstream that you've got councils looking to manage moisture and what we were talking about earlier today, well depths and dams and water and moisture. Like, was it the same customers back then, just the ones that had the money that were the ones actually able to do it, or?
No one was looking to do it
because they didn't
that
know about
way.
It. Yep.
Yeah. So everything back then was radio, SCADA. Councils would all have their own radio systems already in place. So it's pretty hard work back then to sell the concept of not using the radio, using the cell phone network.
Change?
Yeah. So it was a pretty hard slog in those early days to change people. People don't want to go out on a limb and change the way they've been doing it.
Well, we talked about that with councils today, didn't we? You kind of got these people that have been doing the same job for an X number of years. Why would they want to start to complicate their life? Everything's working fine. They're retiring in 5, 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Why add a new technology? Have to learn something new. There's also, and I think a lot of that's fear about either looking silly or, not knowing what you like, looking like you don't know what you're doing to your peers. But so you had to go sell the concept and then the product.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's always hard with any startup at the time is you have to, realistically the projects, projects we were winning were ones where maybe they couldn't do it with what they had at the moment, and we could, we were nimble. There's only a couple of us. We could sort of build something that met their requirements. And I think as you grow, that becomes a challenge, because that's what you're known for in the early days, and then you've got to, as you grow the team and start productizing it, you just have to get to scale if you're building a technology product. So, that's what took us out of New Zealand. It's a pretty small market to be. You can't build a technology product, a hardware product, and just sell in the New Zealand market, because
you've got 1% of the US population, or roughly, in New Zealand, right?
Yeah.
So what you can do one of in New Zealand, theoretically, you can do 100 of in America.
Yeah,
and 8 of in Australia.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and just sort of the risk is to grow, you have to. You're not really building a product. You're having to chase specific opportunities,
because of the size of the market.
Because of the size of the market.
So that's when you become a kind of a bespoke solution provider, which is going to take a lot more effort, because you're reinventing things all the time. Yeah. You're not getting that return on investment, because you're not able to go, okay, we've made product X, let's sell 1 million of them. You're like, let's go make X.1, X.4 kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's still a journey. We don't have one product that does, in the ideal world, if the market was big enough for, soil moisture probes, would have one single product that worked for everything. But the reality is it doesn't. You've got those probes used for all sorts of applications. So, and sort of open green spaces, or if you're monitoring turf, or you're monitoring pistachios, or different soil types. And
was agriculture the first sector that was kind of attracted to it? Obviously, if there's a yield involved and there's a cost of water, that for me it feels like that might be the first, or the low hanging fruit for you if you were trying to sell that kind of technology.
It wasn't actually. No, we sort of got into. Because it's, we started with water, and that's our main focus. And
when you say water, though, as in the delivery of water or the storage of water, or?
Well, to start with, I was saying before, it was wastewater treatment plants.
Yep.
How they operated, and you might be measuring the disposal of the water and the using soil moisture probes, or just the water levels in the tanks and all those sorts of things. So we started there. When we started growing into Australia, it was more to do with we were selling to water utilities and doing a lot of demand management type projects where they were, they're in drought, sort of millennial drought type times.
So what's this, like early 2000s, 2006, 7, and 8 kind of thing?
Yeah.
When we had that drought here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so there was, there was funding available for those sorts of projects, and weren't really many solutions around for it. So we just, we did have a solution at the time, and so
which didn't require much customization to meet the funding requirements. Like, it was there.
Yeah, it was there. It was ready to go. So so that's sort of how we got into Australia back then.
So what does that look like for, I guess, those listening? I mean, obviously our audience, there's probably a lot of business owners, so I'm kind of curious to have straddle both sides of like the product and the tech, but also like you've had some business experience that a lot of people wouldn't understand. So you're in New Zealand, you're like, all right, like we need to go, and what, just start doing some research, or you just jump on a plane and fly? You've got a meeting here already, or how did that look when you first came to Australia?
It's so long ago. I don't
That's
really know.
You got to get a podcast and everything. Then all the records are there.
A lot of just jumping on a plane. Yeah. And
going into New South Wales, Victoria mainly.
To start with, yeah.
So higher population, direct flight.
Yeah.
A little bit less complicated. Obviously, we've James is here today and tomorrow, and he's flying. The flights sound so complicated that it's almost half a day of travel to fly 3 hours, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like that before the pandemic, but it's got a bit tighter now. Yeah.
So it was a bit like New Zealand to Australia and back was pretty. You could kind of pick and choose. Like, there's a lot more planes, a lot more flights between the countries.
Oh, I mean, it's fine 18, again now. 19, it's just Adelaide's a bit harder. Adds another hop in there. So.
Yeah, Adelaide.
Yeah.
I've got to go to. I don't have to go to Tasmania. I'm going to Tasmania in May. No, March. May. Yeah, May. And I was like, we're going to go via Melbourne, and they're like, yeah, there's not that many flights direct from Adelaide to Tasmania. I'm like, huh, okay. And I didn't think about it. I just figured there'd be direct flights from everywhere to everywhere, but.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, there's a lot of, get the 6 a.m. flight out of Auckland, arrive at, early in the morning in Sydney, and
because of the time zone,
because of the time difference, and then do a full day, and then get on the evening flight back home, and get it home at midnight. So there's a lot of that on the cheap fares at the time. So.
Yeah.
So it didn't cost much, and and there was a market right there for
your
us.
Sleep.
Yeah,
but
and realistically, it was easier than New Zealand's a pretty big place. You're going to have to drive.
Yeah.
If you're driving 5 hours to see a customer, well, it takes more than a day. So.
Yeah, we have to stay overnight then, don't you?
Yeah,
that's true. And obviously, so Sydney. So you've come to Australia. Look at, I guess, water. Like large infrastructure, like as in the state water management, and then I guess what happens from then, you kind of start winning some projects around wastewater or delivery of drinking water, and then start looking at kind of agriculture and council, or
I mean, it just built up from there. Like we have, because of that product and that focus on water, word of mouth, and we just started getting into. We do a lot of work with irrigation cooperatives, and so because it's big users of water, that there's a natural shift into agriculture.
And those, obviously, water, especially now, water's such a large cost as a percentage of their total costs when growing. The desire to be able to be efficient around that's probably more than it ever has been. So they'll come looking for you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, to start with, a lot of it's sort of regulation-based as well. We got some regulations I don't even know when it was now in New Zealand, but basically if you're irrigating, you're sucking water out of the ground or taking it out of a river, then you had a consent to do that, then you basically... You have to get a system like ours.
As in metering is mandatory, and the telemetry becomes an optional extra, or they're talking...
No, the telemetry became mandatory.
Because the people that are monitoring the water want to be able to do it without driving out there. They want to be able to see real time what's going on.
They wanted to see what all consent holders were doing on a daily basis and whether they were operating within their consent conditions.
And would they have a parental and child access to that meter? Obviously, the person that's buying the water owns the meter. Do they then share access to the authority?
They had to.
Yep.
Yep.
And then if that access gets revoked by them, then obviously someone's coming and knocking on doors and asking questions.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
And it's starting to happen. I mean, it is happening all around the world, and there's a lot of regulation and coming through in California, and that's why we decided we needed to make the jump over there as well.
So you heard that it was happening, or what? How does that? You kind of go to trade shows, or are you actively looking for where the next markets are, or that just it just organically happened?
That was about 2016, I think. We were a bigger business by then. Still growing organically, but at that time we had got. We'd done some proper research on the market and where the next place for us to go was, and that was an obvious winner on the next place to go.
Yep.
We had highly concentrated agriculture in the sort of San Joaquin Valley. It was a pretty small time zone difference for us in New Zealand, easy to get to, one flight, and they were having really big water issues and compliance coming down the line. So good cellular infrastructure, it just made sense.
It all makes
sense.
No, that makes sense. And it's probably not a bad place to have to go to for work every now and then.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to get to, and
but I mean, from it's a nice place to be, from a work standpoint. It's a pleasant place to stay.
Yes, I mean my business partner Jed, he drew the short straw or the long straw. I'm not sure, but he went over, took his family, and
wow.
and they set up in Central California and hired people, locals.
Do you think that there was any other way to do it other than to go live there and do it? Or you guys didn't see any other way?
We didn't see any other way, no. Maybe, but we had to, we did have to pivot, change the product.
So you want someone on the ground with a real understanding.
Yeah, and who,
rather than it getting not posted back, but it's coming back to New Zealand, takes a couple of days, gets some changes, whereas he can make some real life changes on the spot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's
also being a founder and an owner of the business, he can see what needs to happen, and
because he's seeing
we're
it through
talking
the eyes
every day. So
you guys have worked together for so long that you kind of know what each other would expect of each other, and what he would make decisions how you make decisions. Do you find that you guys have you're generally agreeing?
Yes. So not always,
no.
But eventually.
Yep.
So we can
talk about it,
and we might have differing views, but one of us will be able to talk the other one round.
Yep.
And there's no aggro there. I mean, we went to school together as well, and in fact kindergarten together, so know each other pretty well.
So partnerships, I was in a partnership and I'm not now, and I'm very cynical about partnerships because I think that they can be very dangerous, and obviously you've proven they can be very good because you've obviously got that ability to split you up, or just to have someone else to talk to. I'm guessing is nice, someone that's got as much invested in the success of the company as you. Do you have defined roles in the business? Have you got any rules around, if we've got a software decision to make and we can't agree that it goes to you and that you get priority, or is it you will always just talk about it and get to a point where no, this is not this, we have to agree to get to the agreement?
That's changed over time, and we're bigger now. We've got an executive chairman, and
how many staff have you got?
About 45.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so you've got like an advisory board or a board kind of thing?
Yeah, advisory board.
Yep.
And but, even with all that, it's often where we're still debating, daily what we should be doing. We're doing it now. There's so many, just so many things that get thrown at you every day. So
because you have opportunity risk, because you have so many opportunities, like you have to make a smart decision about what you guys do next.
Yeah. And we, we don't have the resources of venture capital backed competitors.
So still independently owned,
Yep.
like funded, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you have to, if you want to spend money, it's money you've earned.
Yep.
Or money that you choose to borrow.
Yep. So we're reinvesting all our profits back into the business to grow. And over the years we've been up against, in the technology space. There's
in America.
In America.
There's a lot of money, yeah.
There's a lot of money. So you're generally competing against companies with, they might be raising $10 million every 6 months. So you have to be laser focused with where you spend that money.
Do you find that you are looking over those fences, or do you just ignore them and go, we believe in what we're doing, I don't want venture money, I don't want to be like held accountable to these people, like we're going to keep doing what we're doing and we think we'll win?
I think in the early days I do remember spending a lot of time focusing on what everyone else is doing, but now we just don't have time, and I know that there's so much opportunity, and we're pretty excited about that opportunity, and I feel like we just have to focus on our own business, and we can win. So we know what all our problems are, and they're really hard problems to fix. So that's what we have to focus on, and I've no doubt that if we can just every day fix one problem, that we'll get there.
What does winning look like? Like, is there an end goal or like a strategic plan, and obviously if you're not happy to share, you don't have to, but what does it look like? When do you know you've won?
It's we talk about that a bit, and the problem is it changes.
Yeah,
because
that's not uncommon. If you're an entrepreneur, which you obviously are, if you've been thinking about business since high school or primary school.
Yeah, I think in hindsight, when we started, I don't think I ever would have thought that we'd be where we are now. But then you're always frustrated with where you are now. So, so now I'm looking at the business going, why can't we be double or triple or even more? And the types of problems that you're facing are different as you grow. So, I think by the time, especially because we're growing, reinvesting profits is probably a bit slower than you would if you had venture capital or investment. But by the same token, we're in control of it. I know if we had, I look back, if we'd taken on venture capital 15 years ago or 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it'd all be over. We would have gone pedal to the metal in the wrong direction. So,
as in the direction you may have been heading, you were heading there anyway, but by going off course by 1 degree, when you're going really fast, by the time you look up, you're a long way from where you're actually meant to be going. Like, do you feel like you were going in the wrong direction 5 years ago? Is that what you mean?
I mean, not necessarily the wrong direction, but going about it the wrong way.
Yep.
maybe, and there's a whole lot of facets to that. So product market fit, channel to market is a big one, and just the technology, the hardware. That's a big part of what we do. If you had scaled too early, I think we would have been in a world of pain.
As in, you might have spent a lot of money on things that didn't matter, or that you bought a lot of that became redundant quickly. And then I think there's a lot of value in learning as you go, because obviously I think if you had venture capital, you probably would have had to hire a CEO or a mentor that's done what you're trying to do to help you kind of navigate that path. Because I'm in a very similar. We've got 40-ish staff. I probably started when I was 26. So I'm 40 now. So a little bit difference in runway times. I'm frustrated by where I'm at.
Yeah.
I'm independently owned, so no business partners, no external investment. And I look over my shoulder a lot and go, far out, like could I have gone faster, further? Would owning 50% of a $60 million business be more important to me than owning 100% of a $15 million business? But I think I have to keep reminding myself that it's okay.
Yeah.
And that, there's people looking at me and going, I wish I was there. And 30-year-old me is probably jealous of 40-year-old me, and is 50-year-old me going to be proud of what 40-year-old me is doing? And I think you just have to be at peace with that, or take the money.
Yeah.
But you're only going to know which way you go. Like, you're not going to know the result. You know what I mean?
What do you do if you take the money?
Well, that's right.
Do you start something else?
And are you accountable to someone, from a venture capital standpoint? Like, they go, we're going to give you this much money for 50% equity, and now you have to report to a board, and the heart and soul of the business that you've built gets ripped out because it's now a corporate, and they've got KPIs. If you're not meeting them, that person's gone, but they've been with you since the start, and they don't understand the soft benefit of them being there. And there's all these other things that.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's why we've never taken that plunge in terms of accepting investment. We've talked about it a lot, talked with lots of people about it. Lots of people want to invest, but exactly the same reasons you're talking about. It's a pretty nerve-wracking decision to make. You can't undo that.
And this is another question you don't have to answer, but if someone offered you the right amount of money, would you sell, or do you feel like you've got unfinished business, and that it's more important to you than money to finish what you started, kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm unfinished business. Yeah. I mean, we do occasionally get those sort of conversations, and it doesn't feel like the right time. And same sort of thing. What would you do next?
Well, that's what I think about. I think about the journey has to be if you're only doing it for the result, then you're not going to enjoy the ride or the journey. And if you're enjoying the journey and you've got enough to live from, why do you need the money?
Yeah.
And the only thing you're going to do if you sell, and I've heard some stories of, I think it was Mark Burris was talking about selling Wizard Home Loans, which was $500 million exit or something, and I'm probably misquoting that, but a lot of money.
Yeah.
And he got a transfer, and I think he might have got a check, or the bank balance popped up, and he's sitting in a hotel room on his own with a beer and a pizza, and no one cares. Everyone's kind of like, oh, good on you. But the next morning, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because you're not. You need to now work out the new start. And that could be good for some people. They might have wanted that. But I think if you're in your early or mid-40s and you feel like you might have another, I don't know. I mean, if you love doing what you do, you don't have retirement on the horizon, right?
No.
You don't have at 60, I'm going to cash in my chips and sit on a beach. Because I don't think like that.
No.
So why would you sell?
No. I think the only exception to that might be if it really was the right partner and you could see, maybe
from a value standpoint, a money standpoint, all of it.
Yeah, but I'm more talking about the culture of the the acquiring company, what their intentions for the product were, what their intentions for the team were, my customers. A lot of our customers have been with us for 15, 20 years. So, and a lot of them have built their businesses around our business. So if it was the right partner that saw value in everything we see value in, and I could see that, moving ahead with them would just made sense, like it was...
That sounds like a gut thing.
Yeah.
Like it's... You'd have a pretty good sense that they're right. There'd probably be some due diligence, but ultimately you'd be like, is it Jed, your partner?
Yeah.
You'd be like, yeah, this feels right.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And that's the decision, more than like, we've read 400 reports and it is right. Because everyone will tell you that they're going to look after your staff and they're going to keep you on board and they're going to maintain the quality control and all that. But sometimes that's about closing the deal more than a genuine belief.
Yeah, and you can see how they've done it in the past.
Yeah.
So, absolutely, it's gut. Yeah.
If from a different country standpoint, do you have to are the products different when they go into different countries? Like, do you have to meet different certifications, or is the internet, not the internet, but like, are the SIM cards different, or like, how does that work if you've got a US one compared to an Australian one, kind of thing?
Yeah, we've designed the product specifically to be global.
Yep.
So,
and you did that from the start, ish.
Yeah.
Yep.
And but that's the main reason we use telcos, so cell phone networks for all our communication. So there's a lot of alternative options, but that's a global standard. There's a whole lot of multi-billion-dollar companies providing networks that are all exactly the same. So.
Yeah, why try and find an alternative to something that is got the most regulation and quality and money being spent?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
but then we do need to certify, and there's a lot of there is still cost in going into new markets. Yeah.
And most, if not all, of your products are battery based.
Yes.
Yep. So nothing's plugging in, so you're not having to worry about like plugs and CEs and that kind of thing for those.
No. So it's all battery, or like your phone. It's got a lithium-ion battery, and it's rechargeable.
So they become USB-C or whatever, and so they're quite universal.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then you've got so you manufacture everything, like you control the manufacturing of everything?
Yes, we have subcontract manufacturers, but so we do all the design in-house.
Yep.
So, broadly speaking, our R&D team, we've got electrical engineers doing the printed circuit board design and the designs of the electronics. Then firmware developers, building the software on those devices.
Yep.
And then sort of web developers doing, database and apps and that sort of,
because you have your
IT
own app
stuff.
So you've got hardware,
Yep.
software, and the app.
Yep.
And so you build your own apps. You don't third party that. Like, you've got internal staff that do that.
Yep, we do the whole thing, and it's more. I guess the focus for us is to have an out of box product.
Yeah.
So it works out of the box. We provide all the components. That we do have competitors that might focus on the hardware and some focus on the software.
Yeah.
And that's a valid way of doing it. But for us, we want to not have to worry about interoperability of those things, and we want to, our focus is on making it really easy to do remote monitoring, and we sort of have to control the whole user experience in order to achieve that.
So if you'd third party the app development or the firmware, would the concerns be less control of quality and time?
More that we just if we're not doing this, the software is the main interface to the product. So that's where a lot of the innovation is. So if we see a customer problem or we need to solve it, we need to be in control of that, of the design of the software.
Yep. So if you identify an opportunity for improvement, you can do that internally.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for, because the reason I ask, I've been working on an app for years, and we've used a company to do it, and I think when the app company gets busy, we fall into a line, and so we might want to do something new, but it's 3 months before they can look at it. You don't have that problem.
No, yeah.
Unless you've got multiple things you're trying to, I guess, add to the software, you then have to make a choice.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I definitely see the value in outsourcing that development, but with software, it's very unlikely that you can design the final solution for the product up front and have a full specification, hand it over to developers and get them to...
I'm very aware.
Yeah.
I thought we did.
Yeah.
What do they call that? MVP?
Yeah.
And then,
I mean, the whole sort of agile methodology is around, not having to define all up front and getting your MVP out and then making iterations as you go and finding what the product fit is in the end. So if you're doing that, then it's just harder outsourcing it. But lots of people do it and do it successfully. It's just it's not how.
Are your software engineers in New Zealand?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. They've been with you for a while?
Yeah.
Because I've heard with the app developer that we're working with are like, you cannot find software engineers. They're like, we would gladly take 6. And they're just not around. Like, there's so much software being developed, or there's so many companies looking to hire them that they're like a...
Yeah, I think it's just one of the
beautiful,
issues.
Rare things that,
Yeah. Since COVID, that's one of the big issues that we faced. I mean, the biggest one is on the hardware side, logistics of freight and component shortages and... massive lead times on components and
so if you're happy to talk about that, how did that look for you guys? Like, give me the big picture. Like, obviously early 2020 we start hearing whispers of things going on, and then like how soon was you, and did it get to a point where the business was affected dramatically from a stock standpoint, or were you able to navigate that, and then how did you navigate it?
It was extremely challenging. So, it was really stressful at the time too. So, we were in Auckland. We were locked out of our office for God knows how long. But so we had, everything stopped overnight. And luckily for us, a big part of our revenues, software as a service. So it's subscription. So. That sort of carried us through that period. But also luckily we had pretty good forecasts with our contract manufacturers, and we had we were building out forecasts out for a year. So
is it like a bit of a runway of stock?
Yeah, and stock in the system. Like we had been forecasting for manufacturing runs. So
what does that mean? So as in you're getting things manufactured that you will need to have built into a final product in 8 months or 9 months or something. You're getting them made now.
Yeah, I mean, before COVID, you could do if you came up with a design and let's say you wanted to build a prototype, you could probably do that in a couple of weeks.
And they just post that one piece over.
Yeah, and then you could probably get get your own guys to solder some stuff on and come up with a test board. Yeah. But then you just can't do that now. I mean, it's getting better now, but during COVID, if you decided that you wanted some particular modem or microchip, you would have been lucky to get less than 12, 18 month lead time on that part. Yeah.
Because there wasn't enough being made.
There wasn't enough being made, and I think it's a bit of the sort of toilet paper syndrome.
Everyone's
panic buying.
Stockpiling.
Yeah.
That, yep.
Yeah, I mean, we were guilty of it. I was hoarding chips that we didn't know if we were ever going to use. We don't use them. They're box out the back.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to be judgmental when you're part of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was a sort of existential risk, you know.
Yeah.
Like if this main microprocessor, if we can't get hold of it, we've got years of firmware development for that specific chip.
Stop.
And just you can't get it anymore. So what do you do then?
Yeah.
So we're buying variants of it that we don't know if we're even going to be able to use. For you would normally do designs. For any changes, you'd sort of do. You wouldn't actually order the parts until you'd done all the testing and made sure that you needed them. But in those times, you were ordering the parts and then hoping you'd be able to use them because
so if you need 1,000 of something rather than getting 1 or 2 and playing with it and then ordering the 1,000 when you're happy with it, you just buy the 1,000 and hope that when they get there,
buy 1,000 of each and hope and
we can use them.
Can use one of them.
We can use them. Yeah, I think we saw that a little bit. I think hand sanitizer here was one of those things that people were like, just get it. Like, I don't know if this is actually hand sanitizer. I think it's glue. Like, no, just get it. And if it's shit, we'll just throw it out. Like, it was that. Like, there was so much fear around not having it that it would just get, stopped. So, were you having issues getting stuff into New Zealand as far as access to the country standpoint? Like, were there less ships coming to New Zealand than you would have had in the past? Yes.
All our product, it's pretty small. And
so it doesn't come on boat?
No, it goes by air.
You'll air freight everything.
Yep. And the planes were still flying. So
freight planes were moving around. Just you couldn't take people in and out of New Zealand.
Yeah, freight was still going, and I think the government had contracted Air New Zealand to fly planes just for freight. So
that makes sense because it keeps the planes in the air.
Yeah,
supports the business, brings freight in. Country continues moving forward.
Yeah, and maybe the prices were double, but they weren't a big part of our costs anyway. The freight, so that wasn't so much of a challenge. Some stuff coming in by boat, and that was a challenge. Yeah,
and you talked earlier. There's different risks around things on boats. It's not just the delay, but the product being on a boat for a long period of time has risks as well.
Yeah, I mean, we were getting batteries coming in on boats, and yet because they're hazardous goods, so you can't ship them by air. And we had stuff that was on the sea for felt like 6 months. I'm not sure how long it was, but
so it could have been sitting in a dock somewhere or on a boat.
Sitting in a dock somewhere, probably in high temperature, and we did have some issues with batteries over that time. But that actually led to some improvements in the business because we did quite a bit of an R&D around sort of testing of batteries and making sure that we'd batch test them and that we weren't having problems.
You and Jed both quite technical, like you're both I feel like saying readers, but like I'm not a researcher. I will just fly by the seat of my pants and just go. I'm not like I bought a business for circa $500,000 and didn't read the contract because I'm not reading it. Like it's fine, I trust it.
Yeah.
Are you guys quite detail people?
Well, luckily we've got detailed people now in the business. So
were you in the past, or you were just like, no, we'll just run fast?
I'm probably less on the detail. Jed's probably more on the detail.
So that's another advantage of having the partnership.
Yeah.
And but now you've hired detail people.
Yeah.
Yep, I have too.
Yeah.
I think it's a very, very smart thing, and I guess if you're trying to grow, it's hard because it's about finding that balance. And you kind of touched on it before of like being able to grow the business, but also like hold on to the nimble kind of and the compulture that you had when you were small. How are you managing that? You just day by day.
Yeah, that's a challenge. Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure it's the same in every business. Once you, I think that it's quite a good size, that sort of 40 people. Yeah. I can only imagine what happens when you get to thousands of people.
Well, we did some strat planning last week. It got delivered, and like my goal is to get to 100 million, which is just kind of some arbitrary number to try and keep me on track and give me some kind of northern star to chase. But
Yeah.
the reality is, for us to do that, we're looking at 300 to 400 staff. And for the first time I saw it on a screen, I was like, oh my God, like imagine managing 300 to 400 or being responsible for 300 to 400 people's lives as well, because
Yep.
you know, the business, ultimately the buck stops with you. And so if they're not getting paid, if payroll's not made that week, you've got 300 to 400 people that aren't like able to provide for their family. That's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
So kind of like, is that really what you be careful what you wish for? But I think
and there are other risks as well. You know, I mean, that's one of the stresses over COVID. You sort of if you know, when you're smaller and you're thinking, you know, can't make payroll or something,
or you
probably
take
always
the money
got-
out
yeah.
of your own bank account, or
Yeah,
call
or
your
you can-
parents or whatever it might be. You know?
But if you suddenly need
Yeah,
$2 or $3 million, it's a bit harder. You know. You
yeah,
can't-
that's right. And it's I guess it's a scale thing, right? It just becomes less likely that you've got that cash.
Yeah.
Yeah, mate, I remember there being payrolls that were in the low thousands and not having it, and going, how are we going to do this, and balance transferring credit cards and doing some crazy shit just to make sure that our people got paid. And that was always like, I would pay my staff before I pay myself and work myself out later. But
Yeah.
thankfully there's probably only been a period of about 4 weeks where we haven't had the money, and I just haven't paid myself, and we've been able to work it out. But or you know, even like when COVID happened, we had some, you know, you'll see that it exposed a lot of different people in the business, and some people came up and they're like, look, I'm fine financially, so if you want me to take some unpaid leave or whatever, like I'm the guy, like I've got heaps of stuff that I want to do at home. Or like you've had the other ones that are like, I need to be working. You know, we had one of the guys here was here on a visa from England, so he had no legal rights to government support, so we made sure he could work.
Yeah.
And then anyone here that maybe lived on their own, we made sure they worked, because otherwise they're going to be home on their own. Whereas there were people that had family that they were living with, so they weren't, or they had housemates, and they were like, I'm fine, I'll just chill. I was just worried about the people that lived alone. I thought that was a bit of a risk when there's all these things going on, and then you get alone with your own thoughts and you're just sitting at home, like, you know. So we tried to find some kind of balance, but we were really lucky. We were, I don't know who to, like, if you look at South Australia compared to every other state or area in the world, we were probably one of the luckiest states in the world. We were locked down for 3 days, or I think 6 days.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Really, I mean, we had a 6-day lockdown that lasted 3. They were like, all right, cool, we got it under control. Like, it was 6 days and 3 days, and they're like, all right, back to work.
Yeah. Well, we were more like Melbourne, I guess.
Yeah.
In Auckland. So.
Well, from here, it looked very much like you are not, like, it's COVID zero. That was the only focus. No COVID in the country. We are not having it in the country. And I think Melbourne were trying, but Melbourne had the numbers. They were getting high numbers and still locking down. New Zealand were like 0.
Yeah.
Zero. And as an island, you should be able to do that, right?
But you know, in hindsight, there was a lot of stuff that was unnecessary.
Well, I think every country could say that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember sort of walking to the just to the local park with my family, and we'd sort of packed a lunch and a couple of drinks, and we sort of go to sit down in the park, and we realised, you know, no one's there. We're getting dirty looks from people, and
you shouldn't
one
be
of the
out
rules is no picnics.
Yeah,
you know. So
you are breaking the rule, but then what's
and
the
so
risk?
No, we ended up walking home. You know,
it felt wrong. Yeah,
it's just you're not enjoying your
but what's the risk? Look, I think there's a lot of things like that. I think that
if everyone was doing it, then it probably was a risk. Yeah.
So what's the plan? I mean, obviously you've got family. You're not. There's probably a low chance that you're going to move into another country and take the charge on Japan, or I don't know.
Yeah,
Asia.
Low risk of that.
You'll be staying in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And just keep working on improving the products and making sure that you're delivering, you know, the best quality hardware and software that you can.
Yeah, I mean, we've recently been through it, working out our strategy for the next 5 years, and we're just focusing on making that happen.
Do you engage someone to help with that, or you just kind of do internally? You go, okay, this is what we want to do, and you build a document.
We had a new CFO come on a year ago, and because he's fresh to the business and had done a bit of this before.
Yep.
He sort of chaired that, and we got all the staff involved, not at the early days, but to get feedback on where we were sort of landing.
Yep.
And now we're trying to execute on it, and realising we probably trying to do too much in a short amount of time. But it's good to have, it feels good to know what we need to do.
It's really funny that I had a similar realisation with my strat planning, that I've got all these goals that I want to achieve by certain time periods that have either been written down or in my head, and then when we start to chunk it down and reverse engineer it and go, so in 5 years you expect to have this and this and this and this is what you would need to do each year to do it. I'm like, ooh,
yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah, and you got day-to-day stuff going on the whole time too.
That's right. There's still all the people that aren't coming in for various reasons, and people leaving or coming or training, and government regulations. I mean, one of the things that we've identified, we don't own any of our buildings, and we've got retail outlets, so we're at the mercy of our landlords to a degree. Like, they obviously want tenants, and we want to be a tenant, but if the building gets sold, you never really know. So there's all these other risks that you don't really think about until you start going, so what would happen? What would the business, especially if you okay, what would happen if lithium batteries got banned?
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Because of mining concerns. Okay.
Yeah.
But you can't spend too much time sitting in there, because you'll go crazy.
Yeah.
You kind of just have to take just hit the balls that are being thrown at you.
Yeah, well, probably the businesses with money sitting in Silicon Valley Bank didn't have that high on the list of their risks.
And it's really interesting that you say that, because that could have been you.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. In fact, we were put in touch with them when we entered into the US.
These are a good tech startup, good supporting, bank. And then you got a $2 million seed round done, and that's gone. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that got me thinking a lot. And I think we're going to see more of it, but everyone thinks I'm a conspiracy theorist or a nut. But things like that, I feel, don't happen once. They're probably the most extreme example. The bank was operating pretty, they were they were testing the lines of reasonable trading, but there's going to be more. So I try to keep the money. I think in Australia we're covered up to $250,000 per bank license. There's the insurance that the government have. Yeah. So I'm I'll just
spreading it out.
I'll just spread all my money out across all the banks.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to be that clean. And for one, I think our big four are pretty well regulated. Even with crypto, when all that started, when that everything kind of started melting with crypto, I felt safer having money in exchanges that were Australian exchanges, because the regulations here are so ridiculous that they can't do anything. The money is there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because everyone's take it out. If you've got money on Binance or they're next. And so, but then SwiftX, which I don't know how much across you are crypto, but they feel a lot more. They're an Australian company. They're regulated by the Australian government. Everyone's got their two-factor set up. You can't. The government knows exactly what's going on. They know exactly where all the money is. So you're kind of a bit more protected. But
yeah.
It's never 100% there. So for anyone that's interested in getting in touch with Wildeye, so obviously I guess the people that would be interested in dealing with Wildeye, so water authorities, farming, agriculture, people that are managing water, people that are sharing water, councils, schools.
Yeah, we've done stuff with schools in the past, but it's not really a big focus. No.
Yep. If anyone was looking to find more information, is your website the kind of go-to, or?
Yeah, the website's the go-to.
Yep.
Yeah. And, if you get in touch with us through there, then we'll probably put you on to a partner in your local area. Yeah.
Yep. And obviously for anyone listening in Australia, they've got this staff here, and then obviously we've touched on it, New Zealand and the US. Thank you so much I know, for those listening, I kind of sprung this on James, and promised I'd be kind and gentle and not throw him under the bus. So I hope it wasn't too bad.
No, it was good. Thanks.
And I hope that for those of you watching and listening, you got some value from this. It's always nice to meet people that have operating businesses in different areas, and you've got a very similar sized business from a staffing standpoint to us. Obviously, you've got 3 locations, which are vastly different to my 3 locations, but I can appreciate how hard it can be to manage multi-location. I can only imagine how challenging that would be multi-country. But thanks for coming over and thanks for your time.
Oh, thanks.
No worries.
Cheers.